Hey everyone, Daniel here and welcome back to another video. I hope all of you are having a great day out there. As always, here today, I want to sit down and talk to you all about the Tattooed Chef, which has been experiencing a pretty significant decline in its stock price over the past couple of days here, primarily due to one reason, and that is the Popular Investors video about the Tattooed Chef, where Rob goes in depth into a few very interesting points, talking about potential fraudulency within the Tattooed Chef based on the CEO giving away some shares and the CFO of the company leaving shortly after that. So again, in this video, I hope to kind of communicate to you exactly what he said, my response to that, and whether or not you should be worried about the Tattooed Chef potentially becoming the next Enron. So if you end up enjoying this video, please consider subscribing and let's get into it. So first and foremost, if you have not yet watched this video, I highly do recommend you do so. I'll leave it in the description down below. It's around 20 minutes in length, but the main point that Rob was trying to portray in that video was that the CEO of the Tattooed Chef gave away roughly 800,000 shares to a lot of the people that were actually heavily involved in the process of making the Tattooed Chef a public company through their SPAC merger. Now, shortly after the CEO of the Tattooed Chef, Sam Galletti, gave away these 800,000 shares, another individual, the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer of the company, went ahead and left the Tattooed Chef. And what Rob said, and the connection he kind of made here, is that this could potentially mean that the Tattooed Chef underwent some form of fraudulency or bribery or potentially even tax evasion because of Sam Galletti giving away these 800,000 shares to potentially quiet down a lot of these people within this company, whether that be advisors or directors or other things along those lines. And he made two very interesting connections. And one connection that he made here was back in 2008, where a lot of bond issuers would go out, bribe auditors to rate their junk bonds with a AAA rating, which is top of class. And obviously we know how that turned out with the financial crisis, literally, toppling the whole system like a Jenga tower, if you've seen The Big Short. But, generally speaking, here with the Tattooed Chef, that is the main point that he's making. And, potentially the CFO of the company, I think it's Chuck Cargill, that's his name. The understanding, at least on Rob's part, is that potentially Chuck knew about this bribery and left the company to strengthen his reputation because he values his reputation. Now, this is the whole argument made here. Sam Galletti gives 800,000 shares, potentially a bribe. Then, what happens? The CFO of the company leaves to not be involved because he values his reputation. So there's a lot to unpack here. There certainly is. And he also pointed to this potentially becoming the next Enron, which, as we know, was a major scandal of fraudulency and, fraudulent numbers with revenues and profits and, hiding debt and whatnot. But there's a lot to unpack here. So first and foremost, why did Sam Galletti give 800,000 shares to the different individuals at the Forum Acquisition Corp? That's obviously the name of the company that the Tattooed Chef merged with, which allowed them to be a public company. Now, Sam Galletti gave 800,000 shares to roughly 4, 5, maybe even 6 people working at the company, and obviously the Popular Investor pointed to this potentially being some form of bribery. Now, it isn't that, at least in my opinion. The real reason behind why Sam Galletti gave these shares is because he's grateful. That is just the flat out truth. And he said this before on an interview that he never thought he'd be the CEO of a public company, that it happened so quickly, and that the numbers they saw in terms of valuations were just absolutely shocking. At the core, he's grateful. He's grateful for the opportunity to be a CEO of a public company that's worth almost $2 billion at this point. And because of that, he wanted to thank the people that allowed the Tattooed Chef to become a public company and took care of a lot of that process. And in addition to that, I am paraphrasing here, but he said, quote, "They helped us tremendously. They made the merging process so easy and smooth for a person like me who had never dealt with a public company in the public markets before." So, for the SPAC merger, for allowing the Tattooed Chef to be a public company, Sam Galletti went ahead and rewarded these individuals with obviously the 800,000 shares as a bit of a gift. And this is something rather common within SPACs in general, CEOs rewarding the teams at the Special Purpose Acquisition Corps for doing a great job and bringing them to the public markets. Obviously some do it more, some do it less. In the case of Sam Galletti, that's 800,000 shares, but this guy, he's pretty much the main shareholder at the Tattooed Chef, and And sure, giving a couple $1 million here and there, in this case, thanking them for bringing the tattooed chef to the public markets, in my opinion, isn't shady and doesn't really have a correlation between the CFO leaving, which brings me to my next point. Chuck Cargill. Why did he leave the tattooed chef? Obviously, he was the CFO of the company for a few months, but the thing is, his reasoning for his departure is pretty simple. Pretty much the only reason behind Chuck Cargill joining the tattooed chef was to help them get to the public markets. Not more, not less. Once the company stabilized, which it now has, he was scheduled to leave, which he rightfully did. Now, obviously now he's started up his own company, which the popular investor Rob did point out. He's doing great, and there isn't anything fishy along those lines. So let's put this all together. Sam Galletti went ahead and gifted the individuals at, Forum Acquisition Corp, they call it Forum, but, he gifted those individuals 800,000 shares for doing a great job and bringing the tattooed chef to the public markets. The reasoning behind the CFO's departure wasn't because he saw potential fraudulency within the company. He left because he was scheduled to leave either way. And this ties back to the main point, and in my opinion, this should be one of the main takeaways from this video. We just don't have enough information to make an educated decision on the tattooed chef at this moment in time. In my opinion, what we're seeing now, at least from Rob at the Popular Investor, is mainly just speculation. Sure, you could look at all of these different statistics and speculate that, sure, Sam Galletti maybe bribed these different individuals at Forum Acquisition Corp to hide debts and potentially do something nasty when it comes to financials, but in my opinion, it's just as likely that that happens with the tattooed chef as it is for any other SPAC out there. In the case of the tattooed chef, we know that Sam Galletti is a humble CEO. He's grateful that they're on the public markets. He's grateful that the valuation of the tattooed chef is right around $1.5 billion and that he has the opportunity to be the CEO of this company. He has Forum Acquisition Corp to thank for allowing the tattooed chef to be a public company and for them to take care of the whole process. And because of that, he gave away right around 800,000 shares. That is obviously a big amount, but he gave it to them. And there's no reason to think otherwise, at least in my opinion. And on top of that, it is a common practice within the industry. So in my opinion, we shouldn't be looking at this from a negative viewpoint. If something, it's a positive thing and speaks to Sam Galletti's character as a CEO and makes me more confident than ever that he's going to do a great job moving forwards into the future. And alongside that, the CFO, Chuck Cargill, leaving the company, that was predetermined and isn't really correlated with this whole situation with the giving of 800,000 shares by Sam Galletti to Forum Acquisition. So really quickly here, before we do get going, I just want to touch on two more things that Rob did mention in his video. First and foremost, pertaining to Rule 10b5-1. And again, if you want to read more into this, feel free to do so. But at its core, Rule 10b5-1 allows company insiders to sell stock within accordance with insider trading laws. And talking about Rule 10b5-1, it's a filing that needs to be done beforehand and predetermines essentially a price, amount, and date. Now, in the sense of the tattooed chef, they don't have one of these. They haven't filed this, but in the case of what Rob mentions, he said that Sam Galletti should have had a Form 10b5-1 in order for him to sell these shares. Now, the only difference is his selling of his shares was for corporate purposes, not for personal purposes. Obviously, he gave this away as a gift to other people involved in the company, and because of that, this form is not required and shouldn't be looked at in any negative tone. And one last thing I want to touch on here is the potential of Sam Galletti participating in tax fraud and tax evasion. Rob did mention this as a potential risk, but in my opinion, the chances of Sam Galletti actually participating in tax fraud is just as likely as it is for him as it is with people like Jack Dorsey, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. There isn't really any reason to look down on Sam in this situation, and the potential for tax fraud, you never know a person. Any CEO out there could participate in tax fraud if they really want to. And in my opinion, Sam Galletti just isn't the guy to do that. And again, speculation, in my opinion, shouldn't have an impact on your financial decisions. But again, I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell you to buy or sell a stock. So picture this more as entertainment. Now, right before we do get going here, I just want to maintain my stance on the tattooed chef. I'm bullish on the company. I hold in and around 20% of my portfolio within shares and call options and have not sold a single share after this news was released. fundamentals continue to improve at the company, they continue to expand their product lineup, their different stores that they're in, and in my opinion, all of these risks mentioned in this video aren't really risks and rather are potential positives as they really speak to the character of Sam Galletti. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you found any value in it whatsoever, please consider subscribing, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.